I did the beach thing, or I mean my whole life, even with my kids. California was a struggle. Politics were a struggle. My kids were having to defend their faith in high school. Once we were out of California, it was awesome. God brought us to that exact house because it was perfect for my family. I love everything about it. I love the sun. I love the water.
And you've been married how long now?
Next Tuesday, we hit 30 years. My corporate job, FEDEX, was making some changes that were not good. I basically just took my resume everywhere. I've sold 5 boats already, and so it's been awesome.
So this is my cousin Scott, who was kind of an inspiration to me when it came to being a California kid and loving the beach, and really a reason why we ended up moving to Florida and wanting to move closer to the beach. For 2 reasons, because I love the beach, but also because he moved from Huntington Beach, California about, what, 13 years ago?
Yep, 13.
And all the way to North Carolina, right? Rock Hill?
Well, we lived in South Carolina, but it was just under the North Carolina border in Rock Hill, yeah.
So all the way across the United States, not what you would imagine a Huntington Beach kid who grew up in Gardena and Torrance.
Yep, South Bay.
To do. And we're going to dig into that, why you did that. But first of all, the idea behind our show is break from the grind, right? So it's hobbies, but you were always into hobbies when you were younger. You liked to surf, beach volleyball, all that stuff. You lived that life.
Once we moved to Torrance, I did. So once we moved to Torrance, then I could just ride my bike to the beach. I did the beach thing, or I mean my whole life, even with my kids, because once we got married, we moved to Huntington and we started going to a church that was right by the beach, 2 blocks, 3 blocks away from the beach. And we started going there originally because we could get to the beach 5 minutes after church.
Right.
So we did that and, you know, raised my kids at the beach as well.
And you met your wife, Danielle, how long ago? Did you meet her at church? How did you meet her?
I met her on one of my routes at FedEx.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You've been married how long now?
Next Tuesday, we hit 30 years.
30 years.
Yeah, it'll be our 30-year anniversary. We were going to go away, probably to Florida again or somewhere, but we ordered the pool. So we didn't.
There it is back there.
Yeah, that's a big expense. So we decided to not do the big trip.
Well, you've always been one of those people that like the pool.
And well, when we were little, you know, our grandma
had a pool,
an above ground pool, and I always wanted to have a built-in pool. And then the house we bought in Huntington Beach had a pool. It was a little one, but it was fun. And so when we moved to the Charlotte area in Rock Hill, we put in a pool and loved it.
I considered you just the typical California kid, you know?
Yeah.
What motivated you guys to move to the Carolinas?
California was a struggle, right? I mean, just paying taxes was a struggle. Trying to raise kids there was a struggle. Politics were a struggle. My kids were having to defend their faith in high school to high school teachers that were annoying. We just had to get out of there. And Danielle had wanted to leave much earlier, but I was so close to our grandparents that I wanted my kids to have that same thing.
Yeah.
And so I didn't want to leave.
You waited
them, you know, but I got to the point. My dad grew up in North Carolina and we used to come out here when I was a kid. I knew there was a lot of lakes and I loved boating. So I knew I would love that part of it living out here. I was a little bit afraid of how winter would be because I knew it was cold in the winter. We had visited Danielle's family in Michigan and talked about moving out there, but it was gonna be cold. And I just I can't do my outdoor job in 18 degree or minus 18 degree weather. But then I was like, what about North Carolina? She was willing to do that. So I got a transfer. I got one to Texas, one to North Carolina. And we ended up choosing North Carolina because my dad's best friend growing up allowed me to live with him for a few weeks while I found us a house. And so I actually bought that house without Danielle even seeing it. And she's the one that actually told our real estate lady about it. Cheyenne and I went and saw it, and we are the ones that bought the house before Danielle got out here.
What was that adjustment like not being in California anymore? And I would say, what was the hardest part for you guys?
Yeah, I think for me personally, the hardest part was leaving my mom's house. We left from my mom's house, and that was sad. And leaving Danielle and the other 2 kids in California because we didn't get to all go at the same time.
Right.
But once we were out of California, really once we crossed that state line into Arizona, it was awesome. It was adventure. I loved it. My work was much harder to be in North Carolina. The streets were different, the maps were different. So for my job, it was hard.
Yeah.
But once I got into the swing of things there, I loved the people that I worked with. We started going to a church right away. We made friends with our neighbors. Our next door neighbors had a daughter the same age as Cheyenne and a son a little bit older than Gracie. And so our kids immediately became friends. And I really felt like God brought us to that exact house because it was perfect for my family.
Did you ever think you'd leave California?
No, I never thought I'd leave. Even when I was 18 and I came out here to North Carolina, I loved it. I loved the lakes. I loved water skiing so much. And the lakes in California, Arizona were hard to get to, hard to water ski on because they're only good certain times of the day for that sport. I really loved that out here. You could go all day long and you didn't have to drive. You only had to drive 10 minutes to get to the lake.
Yeah. You used to surf. That was something you did all the time. I imagine that that was pretty hard, being someone that loved the beach, knowing you're moving somewhere where there's not a beach in sight.
Yeah.
Was that tough?
It was hard to leave the beach, but I knew in my mind, I loved the lake enough that that would replace
it would be
that.
A substitute.
The one interesting thing was I always thought my surfing days were just done. I mean, I gave away my surfboards. I didn't take any wetsuits with me. And then come to find out, we started going to the beach here and we found this one beach in North Carolina that has really good waves. And so it's very much of a surf community around Wilmington, North Carolina.
Wow. Goats are interrupting.
Yeah, they're scratching. The town is called Curry Beach. It's gorgeous there. And we vacation there every year. First place I go, I ride my bike to the rental shop, grab a board and have it for the whole week because I know I'm going to get at least 1 or 2 days of, California 1 to 2.
Yeah,
out here, they're like, oh, it's 2 to 3. No, maybe not.
You said you could leave surfing behind because you were into boating. When was the first time you bought a boat? What got you into boating?
So we had a couple of little boats when I was a kid and we water skied and did all the things, but we weren't able to go that much because like we were talking about in California, you have so far to go to get to the lake and it's just a chore. And so my family didn't really enjoy that part of it very much.
So your parents owned a boat then?
My parents, they had a couple, the little different ones. And I remember the day that they sold that boat, I was so sad. When I started working at FEDEX and I saved up a little money, I bought a jet ski for $1,200.
Yep, I remember the stand-up kind, right?
Yep. And then met this girl, I was kind of dating her and her dad had this amazing boat. We water skied all the time and she dumped me and I wasn't going to have a boat anymore. I had no access to her dad's boat anymore.
Should have been nicer to her.
I guess so. It was like the very next week I went to the dealership and I bought the same exact boat. And then when we were buying our first house, I sold that boat for the down payment on our house. I had some money saved up, but I didn't have enough. So we sold that boat and I thought, I'll have another boat in 5 years or whatever. And then it was 10 years later.
Oh, that long.
Yeah,
wow.
I did not have a boat for 10 years. That's probably when I surfed the most because I didn't have a boat.
Were you living in Huntington at the time?
Yeah, we were living in Huntington. That was the house we bought in Huntington. And then finally, after a while, I was just like, man, the kids are getting too big and they're not going to be able to learn to water ski and all that. And so I found this used boat and that's the boat that we still have. 15 years later, it's got a new motor.
It runs great.
It's been through a new motor and a lot of other new things.
I think that's the thing about boating that's really interesting is it is not a cheap decision to make.
No, it's not. Yeah.
What is it about boating that you like so much?
I love everything about it. I love the sun. I love the water.
Yeah.
I love the sport aspect of it. It's a good workout. Just so much fun.
Our channel's about break from the grind. Did boating do that for you? Really fill you up on the weekend? Did you go almost every weekend? Did you go as often as you could?
Not in California. We didn't get to go that much. Oh, here, yeah. I'd say we go once every other week. The thing that I love so much about here is that it's only 5 minutes away. I can hook it up in the barn. We can be off the trailer in 15 minutes.
Like it's seamless. It was super easy. We've gone a couple times. We're there in no time. We're in that boat and we're out on the water in no time.
And so, you know, our new jobs, Danielle's new job, she's home by 6:30. I'm home by 5:30. We have a couple of restaurants that we like. We could take the boat to dinner, which is super fun. And in the South, you don't have to have a third person in the boat. You can still wakeboard with 2 people as long as you have a mirror. So we can still wakeboard. She can still tow me. She doesn't wakeboard very often, but she's a good driver. So she tows me, and we can still do that once a week. We've already had our boat out. I think today was the 5th time I've had it out this year already. If I took it out 5 times in California in a year, even though you could go all year, it was just so much more expensive and so much farther to go, so much harder to get schedules where you could go. When I was younger, when I had my first boat, it was just me. I went a lot.
How important do you think it is to have hobbies?
For me, my hobbies have always been sports.
Yeah.
So for me, it was, you know, hockey, sometimes beach volleyball you mentioned, and surfing. Water was always to do with it. That was my break from the grind, my whole life, sports.
Yeah.
I am very fortunate. I mean, I have done a lot of things. I worked for an IndyCar team. I've driven tractor trailers. I've traveled the world. I've been everywhere, you know, and so I am very fortunate.
So
lived on both sides of the country. Most people, a lot of people I know here have never been to California.
They just stay.
You know, they just don't go past the Mississippi.
Well, sometimes I think it's easier to be a Californian and leave than to be someone and move to California.
Oh,
California is costly.
absolutely.
It's a whole different way of life out there. A little bit of a segue into your recent change in life, because you just left your career. You're 37 years at FedEx.
Walking into my job for the last time after 37 and a half years. I appreciate what they've done for me, helped me move across the country and have a job waiting for me. But here it is, my last day clocking in. And after today, officially retired, moving on to selling boats. So we'll see you out at the lake.
That's a long career of hard work.
Yeah.
And now you're doing something which I think is a perfect fit for you, by the way. What made you want to do something different? I don't need to ask why boat sales. I don't need to ask that question. So why the change, and what made you choose boat sales?
My corporate job, FedEx, was making some changes that were not good. I turned 55, and at 55, I was able to retire and receive the benefits. And also, my wife got a really good job where her income was kind of already replacing my income, so I could take a little more risk.
A chance.
And I started going to every boat dealership around here, everyone, and just nervously saying, I want to do this. I wanted to do it my whole life, really. I wanted to sell boats. I wanted to be in that industry, doing something in that industry, I don't know whether it was sales or, you know what. I was willing to do anything. I just wanted to be around boats. I basically just took my resume everywhere. Most of the time I didn't get any response, you know, and definitely not a very good response. And then I got this one boat dealership that was willing to say yes and give it a try. Hey, my name is Scott Barber. We're here at Viking Marine in Seneca, South Carolina. This is my grandson, Harrison, and we're standing in front of the Montera Surf Box. I've been there not quite a month, you know, 3 weeks and a couple of days, and I've sold 5 boats already. And so it's been awesome.
That's great.
Yeah,
I think you're going to be great at it. I'm glad you're able to take this chance right now. The last aspect of what we're going to talk about is you live on a 10-acre farm. You went from this tiny parcel in Huntington Beach, you know, small house, very, you know, little tiny yard with a smashed pool in the backyard, to 10 acres. And we're going to get on the tractor. This is Scott. He's happy out here. You can make big moves in life, and you can take big chances, and you can have really cool things that you do as your break from the grind. So let's get on some tractors.
Let's go do it. There we go.
As I put the finishing touches on this video, I regretted not asking my cousin more questions. Questions about his faith and what he thinks have been the keys to a 30-year marriage. About what it's like to live on a 10-acre farm with chickens, goats, a beehive, and grass so tall that it requires a tractor for mowing. And I have loads of questions for his better half, Danielle. But I guess that just means that Mindy and I will have to return again. Take another spin on the boat and enjoy more great conversations with two of my favorite people. And I want to thank Scott and Danielle for their hospitality on our trip, and big thank you to Mindy for walking backwards on a hot day filming Scott and I yammering. Until next time, thank you for watching.